Today we are speaking with Anna Levin, the founder of Munchkin Mailbox startup. Anna, nice to talk to you. Glad you could join us.
Thank you.
Let's talk a little bit about Munchkin Mailbox.
It all started with my own journey of finding care for my first daughter. If you're in a metropolitan area, finding daycare is really, really hard. There's just way more supply than there is demand. So what ends up happening is that you get on a lot of wait lists, you apply to a lot of places, you make a lot of phone calls, and you fill out a lot of paperwork in hopes to find one spot. And I found it incredibly stressful. So one day I was dropping off an application, and it just kind of dawned on me that, I have to make this easier. In my opinion, working parents are some of the most stressed out people in the world. So it just felt like this undue burden for people who are spending 10, 20, 30 hours of their time going through this process.
You mentioned in your bio on the website something about having to all but prove that your 2-year-old is a genius to get acceptance. How is it that daycares of all places are that demanding and competitive from pre-K age kids?
Daycares are a really low profit margin business to get into. So the people that run them do it for pure love of being around children. It is a passion of theirs. And so you create this situation where, there's licensing, there's regulations. It's the proof of burden in order to open up a childcare facility is difficult. On top of it, it's not particularly profitable. There's just not enough of them. I do know that our current administration is putting money and effort into making it more accessible. It's not just this easy solution. It's an emotional decision too, because these are your babies.
You've mentioned also that you heard a lot of similar horror stories beyond anything you experienced from the people you talked to. What were some of the other roadblocks that those people were talking about in getting their kids a daycare?
I talked to this one mom who lived in New York, and because her husband switched jobs, they moved to San Francisco. So the two most competitive networks of childcare environments, she had to apply to and twice in 1 year for 2 kids. And so she told me, and I was like, well, approximately how much time do you think you spent in the entire year doing that? And she's like, oh, easily 50, 60 hours. And I'm like, that's, almost 2 weeks worth of your time. Another mom told me once that she was spending hours and hours and hours making phone calls because she couldn't get price information. She had a very specific budget and she couldn't get price information readily available. And so she would just spend, I think she said, like 10 hours a week for 6 months.
Daycare, presumably that's, on the record, has an application process, presumably has a website. No information at all about the price for registering or enrolling?
Yeah, it just depends on the school. Some schools have a website and all their pricing information is fully available on their website. Some schools don't even have a website. Some schools don't have their pricing information available. So there's no standardization.
How many daycares have you or people you've talked to ultimately had to send an application to?
The average is between 5 to 7 from my research. Me personally, I've probably sent about maybe like 7 or 8 applications, and that's about average.
There's been a lot of talk about, being privileged or connected or something like that, a matter of like class and availability. Is any of that at play in terms of people who have a pain-free, application process?
Oh, absolutely. I mean, I think one of the reasons why this problem hasn't really been fully addressed is because it is usually a woman's burden to do this. And then secondly, if you have the means, you're not going to a daycare, you're most likely doing a nanny or a nanny share. I've talked to investors and they're like, well, I didn't have to do this because I had a nanny. I'm like, well, most people can't afford $40 to $50 to $60,000 a year. This is a lower income, middle class, even upper middle class income issue.
What you've done with Munchkin Mailbox is kind of following in the tradition of a lot of startups I've talked to, which is presenting a solution for, lower and middle class families who otherwise just wouldn't have access to these sorts of things.
Yeah, and that's why I've made it completely free. It just felt like the right thing to do with COVID right now. From what I found was that parents already knew generally what kind of schools they were going to be applying to, whether it was the type of school or, price was an issue or proximity is an issue. So you go to the site, you pick what schools you want to apply to. Everybody that's listed on our platform is licensed, but we don't make any kind of determining factor of whether you should do Montessori or home daycare or anything like that. That's totally up to you. And then it's a really simple 4-step process. It's your information, your child's information. And then the third step is the custom information that the schools have set up. They can ask you anything really. What does your child like to do? Are they potty trained? And that's all on one page. And it's very intentional because a lot of schools will ask duplicative questions. So that way you can just copy and paste. And then the fourth step is payment. And so the school gets 100% of their application fee. Application fees are really kind of this weird thing. There's no regulation. Some schools charge $0, some schools charge $200. So you go through the checkout process, and then the schools will get notified that they have your application. And you guys take it from there. We're working on getting the next steps of that process, like enrollment and, getting waitlist information, getting, scheduling tours, whether in person or virtual. So we're working those features right now, but right now we just have the application portion set up.
And do you feel like you are currently addressing like the most difficult or painful part of the application process, or is there more to it that you feel like you're pursuing in, future developments?
Yeah, so future developments, we just want to be the end-to-end solution. So this is just like the very first step. Really, because we're a startup, we have to kind of slowly iterate, get some feedback. And then from what I've heard from parents, the next thing that they want are like reviews or what we're calling stories about, people's experiences. Because a lot of times you can move to a new neighborhood, you don't have a network of friends or family that can tell you if a school is good or not. So then you can go to the site and see, what other parents have said.
Have you found this startup like Munchkin Mailbox, has that been a good means of comparing quality in daycare centers?
Yeah, we don't want to get into that. As long as it's licensed, what might work for my child and my family may not work for another family. We just want to make the process easier for everyone, and we want to make sure people have access to care. Every state does a really good job of licensing and doing inspections. So, we bring that information to you and say, this is their license information. If they have any kind of, violations, you can go ahead and look that up. It's all public information.
What kind of customizations or specifications or preferences do a lot of the people who come to you, go for?
Yeah, I've seen a big variety. Some people like kind of more kind of established schools. And it also depends on the age of your child. Some schools don't accept kids up until they're 2 years old. So that's going to change your selection. But I haven't really seen a pattern. It's people just want something that they feel is trustworthy and that their kids are going to be well cared for.
Anna Levin, you can find her service in your search for daycare at munchkinmailbox.com. Anna, thank you once again. It's been a privilege talking to you.
Thank you so much. I appreciate it. Thank you.
Pressful. It's so easy, as it should be.